What if everything we thought we knew about the ancient world was just the tip of the iceberg? Picture this, the Great Pyramid of Giza, not as a weathered relic of the past, but as it once stood, a gleaming monument covered in polished limestone, reflecting the sun like a beacon across the desert. Now imagine the tools and technologies that built it, so advanced they've been lost to time, leaving behind only whispers in myth and legend. This is where our journey begins, at the crossroads of ancient marvels and modern innovation, where cutting-edge science is peeling back the layers of history to reveal secrets we never thought possible. For centuries, these ancient wonders have captivated us, not just for their grandeur, but for the mysteries they guard. How did civilizations with no modern machinery achieve such precision? What knowledge vanished with them, leaving behind only fragments of their brilliance? Today, we're not just revisiting these questions, we're rewriting the answers. With tools like 3D modeling, artificial intelligence, and ground-penetrating radar, archaeologists and engineers are reconstructing the past in ways that would have seemed like magic just a few decades ago. We're seeing temples rise from digital blueprints, hearing the echoes of long-lost languages decoded by algorithms, and uncovering hidden chambers buried for millennia. The line between myth and reality is blurring, and what emerges is more extraordinary than either could have promised alone. This isn't just about rediscovering the past, it's about redefining it. Every breakthrough challenges what we thought we knew, turning ancient stories into living puzzles waiting to be solved. From the towering ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the labyrinthine ruins of Knossos, we're piecing together a world where technology and mythology weren't separate, but intertwined. And as we explore these revelations, you'll start to see these wonders not as static relics, but as dynamic testaments to human ingenuity. So join me as we step into this fusion of old and new, where every discovery invites us to wonder, what else is waiting to be uncovered? The past is speaking, and now, at last, we have the tools to listen. Take a closer look at the stones of the Great Pyramid, each one weighing multiple tons, cut with such precision that not even a razor blade can slide between them. Or consider the walls of Machu Picchu, where massive boulders fit together without mortar, locked in place by angles so exact they've withstood earthquakes for centuries. How did ancient builders achieve this without the lasers, cranes, or computer-aided designs we rely on today? Some researchers believe the answer lies in lost technologies, methods so advanced they've been erased from history, surviving only in fragments of myth and scattered archaeological clues. One compelling theory points to the power of sound. Ancient texts from cultures worldwide speak of sacred frequencies capable of moving massive objects. The Vedas of India describe Vimana's mythical flying machines lifted by the resonant hum of mantras. In Egypt, legends tell of priests using harmonic vibrations to levitate stones into place. Could these stories hold a kernel of truth? Modern experiments have shown that certain sound frequencies can indeed affect matter, creating standing waves that manipulate objects. While we're far from floating pyramids, the idea that ancient builders harnessed acoustics isn't as far-fetched as it once seemed. Then there's the mystery of metallurgy. The iron pillar of Delhi, standing rust-free for over 1,600 years, defies modern corrosion science. Similarly, the Damascus steel used in ancient swords forged with patterns resembling flowing water has never been perfectly replicated. Some speculate these metals were crafted using techniques involving controlled magnetism or even nanoscale structures, knowledge that vanished with the civilizations that perfected it. Perhaps most intriguing are the hints of ancient energy systems. The Baghdad Battery, a clay pot filled with vinegar and copper, suggests rudimentary electricity may have been used 2,000 years before its official discovery. Meanwhile, the pyramids' alignment with celestial bodies and their peculiar electromagnetic properties have led some to theorize they were more than tombs. They might have been power plants or resonance chambers, tapping into energies we're only beginning to study. Of course, not all theories hold water. Claims of extraterrestrial intervention often overshadow the real ingenuity of ancient cultures, but dismissing every anomaly as alien handiwork does a disservice to human innovation. The truth may be even more remarkable. Civilizations we consider primitive might have possessed sophisticated understanding of physics, geology, and energy knowledge lost to war, disaster, or time. As modern technology catches up to these ancient secrets, one thing becomes clear: history isn't just a record of the past, it's a puzzle, and every piece we recover changes how we see our ancestors and ourselves. The real question isn't whether they had advanced technology, but how much more they knew that we've yet to rediscover. Imagine standing in the heart of Babylon at its peak, surrounded by the towering Ishtar Gate, its blue-glazed bricks shimmering under the Mesopotamian sun, while the voices of merchants haggling in the marketplace rise above the hum of the city. This isn't a scene from a history book or a movie set. It's a digital reconstruction, painstakingly built from terabytes of LiDAR data and archaeological records. Technologies like airborne laser scanning have stripped away centuries of overgrowth and decay, revealing the skeletons of lost cities hidden beneath jungles, deserts, and modern streets. From the sprawling avenues of Angkor Wat to the intimate courtyards of Pompeii, we're no longer just guessing what these places looked like, we're stepping into them. These reconstructions aren't just pretty visuals, they're scientific tools cracking open long-debated mysteries. Take the Roman Colosseum. By modeling its acoustics in virtual reality, researchers discovered how subtle architectural tweaks, like the placement of corridors and arches, amplified the roar of the crowd and projected gladiators' voices across 50,000 spectators. Or consider Chichen Itza, where digital recreations of the Mayan pyramids revealed how their staircases cast eerie, serpent-like shadows during equinoxes, aligning with ancient myths of celestial serpents descending to Earth. Every pixel in these models serves a purpose, testing theories about everything from traffic flow in ancient Athens to the ritual significance of temple alignments in Egypt. But perhaps the most profound impact lies in accessibility. For decades, the past belonged only to those who could travel to ruins or decipher academic papers. Now, anyone with a smartphone can wander through a three-dimensional reconstruction of Petra's rock-cut tombs or explore the Palace of Knossos as it stood before the earthquakes. Museums are partnering with game studios to turn these models into immersive experiences, letting you barter in a Viking trading post or attend a banquet in Heian-era Kyoto. The line between education and adventure blurs, making history feel less like a lecture and more like a conversation. Yet these digital time machines also raise tantalizing questions. If we can simulate the acoustics of Stonehenge or the sight lines of Teotihuacan's pyramids, what else might we learn? Could virtual rituals performed in reconstructed temples unlock forgotten spiritual practices? Might AI-driven analysis of urban layouts reveal how ancient societies solved problems we still grapple with today, like overcrowding or water management? The more we rebuild these places, the more they speak to us, not as silent ruins, but as living classrooms. And with each breakthrough, we're reminded the past wasn't static. It was vibrant, adaptive, and far more inventive than we ever imagined. The next time you see a crumbling column or a faded mosaic, try picturing it not as a relic, but as a single frame in a moving, breathing world. Because that's what these digital reconstructions are giving back to us: the motion, the noise, the life. And in doing so, they're rewriting history not as a series of facts, but as an invitation. An invitation to walk alongside the people who came before us, to see what they saw, and perhaps to understand what they knew. For thousands of years, undeciphered scripts have been history's most tantalizing locked doors, each symbol a mystery, every unreadable line a whisper from a world we can't quite hear. Take the Rosetta Stone, that famous slab of granodiorite covered in Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphs. It took Jean-François Champollion decades of painstaking work to crack its code in the 1820s. But what if he'd had a tool that could analyze millions of linguistic patterns in seconds? That's exactly what artificial intelligence is bringing to the table today, turning what was once a scholar's lifelong labor into a collaborative dance between human intuition and machine precision. The challenges are immense. Ancient scripts like Linear A, used by the Minoans over 3,500 years ago, or the symbols of the Indus Valley civilization, have resisted translation for centuries. Without a bilingual key like the Rosetta Stone, experts have been left guessing. But AI doesn't rely on luck or parallel texts. Instead, it hunts for deeper, subtler clues. Machine learning algorithms can scan thousands of inscriptions, mapping how often certain symbols appear together, where they're placed, even how they evolve over time. It's like teaching a computer to recognize the grammar of a lost language by spotting patterns no human eye could process at scale. Some breakthroughs are already rewriting history. In 2021, an AI model trained on ancient Semitic languages proposed new translations for Ugaritic texts, a script from modern-day Syria that hadn't been fully understood. The system didn't just match symbols to meanings, it inferred grammatical rules and even suggested corrections to earlier human translations. Meanwhile, researchers applying similar techniques to the Voynich manuscript, that bizarre 15th century book filled with unknown plants and unreadable text, have identified possible linguistic structures hiding beneath its strange illustrations. Could these be the first steps toward finally reading it? But AI isn't just filling in gaps, it's challenging assumptions. Take the Indus Valley script, often dismissed as mere pictograms or proto-writing. Recent algorithmic analysis suggests it might be a full-fledged language, with syntax and word order resembling later South Asian tongues. Other projects are testing whether machine learning can detect cultural fingerprints in writing styles, linking disparate scripts to shared origins or migrations. Imagine tracing the spread of ideas across continents not through pottery shards or DNA, but through the shape of a civilization's letters. Yet for all its power, AI isn't a magic decoder ring. These tools work best when guided by human expertise, combining the intuition of historians with the brute force analysis of algorithms. A machine might spot that certain symbols cluster like verbs or nouns, but it takes a scholar to ask, does this fit with what we know of the culture? Could this word mean river or God in context? The most exciting discoveries happen at this intersection where technology illuminates possibilities and human insight turns them into understanding. What's next? As neural networks grow more sophisticated, we might see them reconstruct lost languages from fragments, or even predict how undocumented scripts could sound. There are ethical questions too. Who owns these translations? How do we avoid biasing algorithms with modern assumptions? But one thing's certain, the dusty tablets and faded manuscripts sitting in museum vaults aren't just relics anymore. They're puzzles waiting to be solved, and for the first time in history, we have a key that fits more than just one lock. The past wrote itself in codes we're only now learning to read. And with every algorithm, every breakthrough, we're not just translating words, we're rebuilding conversations with the dead. What if the griffins and sphinxes carved into temple walls weren't just artistic symbols, but blueprints for ancient machines? Across cultures, myths tell of creatures that moved, spoke, even guarded sacred spaces with uncanny intelligence. The Greeks wrote of Tolos, a towering bronze automaton that patrolled Crete's shores, hurling boulders at invaders. In ancient China, court records describe mechanical lions that danced and roared before emperors. These stories seem like pure fantasy until you examine the artifacts left behind. Take the Antikythera mechanism, a 2,000-year-old device found in a shipwreck off Greece. With its intricate bronze gears, it tracked celestial movements with precision rivaling modern clocks. Or consider Hero of Alexandria's first-century inventions: steam-powered engines, automatic temple doors, even a mechanical theater where tiny figures acted out entire plays. These weren't toys, they were early robotics, proof that ancient engineers understood principles of automation we often credit to much later eras. Now, modern teams are reverse engineering these designs. At the University of Thessaly, researchers built a functional replica of Hero's automatic servant, a figure that poured wine when a cup was placed in its hand. Meanwhile, in Japan, roboticists have recreated the Karakuri Ningyo 18th-century mechanical dolls that served tea or shot arrows with startling accuracy. The more these reconstructions succeed, the harder it becomes to dismiss ancient texts as mere metaphor. Could the fire-breathing dragon guarding a Mesopotamian treasure vault have been a steam-powered contraption? Might the singing statues of Egyptian temples have concealed intricate vocal mechanisms? The implications are profound. If these myths preserved real technologies, they suggest a forgotten chapter in human innovation, one where engineering and storytelling weren't separate disciplines but partners. A sphinx's riddle might not just test wisdom but conceal the activation code for a hidden mechanism. The golden apples of the Hesperides, guarded by a never-sleeping dragon, could symbolize an early security system. Every myth becomes a potential manual, waiting for the right tools to bring its secrets back to life. Of course, not every legend holds a technical truth. But the overlap between ancient automata and mythical creatures is too striking to ignore. Today's roboticists aren't just building the future, they're rediscovering a past where imagination and invention walked hand in hand. And as we bridge that gap, we're left with a thrilling possibility. The most enduring myths might not be fantasies at all, but faded memories of humanity's first technological golden age. Deep in the temple complexes of ancient Egypt, carvings at Dendera depict what looks eerily like modern light bulbs, elongated glass chambers with snaking filaments held aloft by priests. Nearby hieroglyphs call them the sun's rays in the hand, suggesting something far more tangible than symbolic art. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote of an ever-burning lamp found in a sealed tomb, its flame undimmed after centuries. These aren't isolated stories. From the eternal fires of Baku's Zoroastrian temples fed by natural gas vents, to the glowing sunstones of Viking sagas that allegedly navigated through fog, our ancestors left behind tantalizing clues that they understood and manipulated energy in ways we're only beginning to piece together. Take the Baghdad Battery, a modest clay jar from 2,000 years ago containing a copper cylinder and iron rod. When filled with vinegar or citrus juice, it produces around 1 volt of electricity, enough to electroplate jewelry or create mild medicinal shocks. While some dismiss it as a storage vessel, replicas prove its electrochemical potential. Could priests have used such devices to gild idols, making them appear miraculously radiant? Or consider the Ark of the Covenant, described in the Bible as emitting lethal energy so dangerous that touching it meant instant death. Modern physicists note its gold construction and possible parallels to capacitor-like systems storing static charge from desert winds. Then there's the enigma of the Dendera reliefs. Those bulb-like carvings show cables leading to what engineers recognize as a possible crux tube, an early electrical component that generates light when voltage is applied. While mainstream archaeology interprets them as symbolic serpent imagery, experiments with reconstructed models produce a ghostly glow startlingly similar to the carvings. Even more provocative are accounts from Alexander the Great's historians, who described entering a subterranean chamber beneath the Giza plateau, illuminated by a single, unearthly light source that required no fuel. Geothermal energy seems to have been harnessed too. The oracle at Delphi famously inhaled vapors from a fissure before prophesying fumes now identified as ethylene, a gas that induces trances. Recent surveys reveal the temple sat directly above intersecting fault lines, suggesting the priests didn't just stumble upon psychic powers, but engineered a sacred space around natural geological phenomena. Similarly, the everlasting fires of Persia and Azerbaijan weren't miracles but savvy uses of methane seeps, channeled through ceramic pipes to create awe-inspiring displays of controlled combustion. What ties these fragments together is a pattern too consistent to ignore. Whether through accident or advanced understanding, ancient cultures appear to have tapped into energies we assume were discovered millennia later. Maybe they didn't grasp the physics behind voltaic cells or ionized gases, but they recognized their effects and applied them with ritual precision. The real question isn't whether these technologies existed, but how much deeper their knowledge ran. Because if they could keep lamps burning for centuries or weaponize electrostatic forces, what other secrets might lie buried, waiting for our science to catch up to their wisdom? Standing before Stonehenge at dawn on the summer solstice, you'd witness a spectacle that's played out for over 4,000 years, the first rays of sunlight slicing perfectly between the massive sarsen stones, illuminating the altar at the heart of the circle. This isn't a lucky coincidence, it's a precision-engineered celestial clock, one of hundreds scattered across the globe. From the Nazca Lines, sprawling animal glyphs visible only from the air and aligning with solstice sunrises, to the Temple of Karnak's grand axis, designed so the rising sun floods its inner sanctum on the winter solstice, these monuments whisper a startling truth. Ancient cultures didn't just watch the stars. They mapped the heavens with a sophistication that rivals modern observatories. How did they achieve this without telescopes or written star charts? One theory points to generational knowledge, centuries of naked eye observations passed down through oral traditions and encoded in myth. The Dogon people of Mali, for instance, knew of Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible without advanced optics, long before its official discovery in 1862. Their legends describe it as a tiny, dense companion to Sirius, spinning in an elliptical orbit, details that match modern astronomy with eerie accuracy. Similarly, Mayan codices track Venus cycles to within 2 hours over a 500-year period, while the Nebra sky disk, Europe's oldest known celestial map, depicts the Pleiades cluster with pinpoint precision. Today, archaeologists are using planetarium software to test these alignments in ways never before possible. By inputting precise GPS coordinates and adjusting for millennia of Earth's axial wobble, they've uncovered hidden layers of meaning. Take Newgrange, Ireland's 5,000-year-old passage tomb. Digital recreations revealed that its narrow entrance doesn't just frame the winter solstice sunrise, it channels light in a creeping beam that illuminates spiral carvings deep inside, a phenomenon that lasts exactly 17 minutes. This wasn't just a calendar, it was a theatrical demonstration of cosmic order designed to awe and educate. But the real revelations come when these digital tools expose larger patterns. The Pyramids of Giza mirror the belt of Orion as it appeared in 10,500 BCE, while Cambodia's Angkor Wat temples mirror the Draco constellation. Some researchers argue these aren't mere symbolic gestures, but fragments of a global sky-ground tradition, a belief that sacred sites should mirror the heavens, creating a harmonic resonance between Earth and cosmos. Even more provocative are sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, where 11,000-year-old pillars seem to depict a catastrophic comet impact later confirmed by ice core samples. Were these monuments also ancient observatories, tracking not just time but celestial threats? The more we decode these alignments, the clearer it becomes. Our ancestors saw the sky not as a distant void, but as a living map. Their monuments weren't just tributes to the stars, they were conversations with them. And as modern technology peels back the layers of their understanding, we're left to wonder, if they could track precession cycles and predict eclipses with nothing but stone and patience, what other cosmic secrets might they have known that we've yet to rediscover? The ocean has always been humanity's greatest mystery, an endless, shifting veil hiding more secrets than we've ever uncovered on land. But now, with submersibles gliding through the abyss and sonar painting ghostly images of what lies beneath, we're pulling back that veil one discovery at a time. Take the Yonaguni Monument off Japan's coast, a sprawling, terraced structure with right angles and staircases carved into the seafloor, dating back at least 10,000 years. That's older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge, from a time when conventional history says humans were barely out of the Stone Age. Yet there it stands, or rather sinks, defying easy explanation. Is it a natural formation shaped by currents and tectonic shifts, or the ruins of a civilization lost when sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age? The debate rages on, but one thing's certain: the ocean floor is anything but empty. Then there's the haunting grid of Dwarka, India's legendary sunken city. Ancient texts describe it as Krishna's golden capital, swallowed by the sea after his death. For centuries, it was dismissed as myth until marine archaeologists found massive stone walls, pottery, and even human remains submerged off the Gujarat coast. Carbon dating places them at 9,000 years old, aligning with flood stories found in cultures worldwide. Similar discoveries dot the globe: Cuba's underwater megaliths, their geometric patterns echoing pyramids half a world away; the Baltic Sea's mysterious anomaly, a disc-shaped structure that some speculate could be a prehistoric monument. Each one chips away at the timeline we thought we knew, suggesting advanced societies may have risen, thrived, and drowned long before Sumer or Egypt. What's revolutionizing this field isn't just better diving gear. It's technology that lets us scan the seabed like never before. Autonomous drones equipped with LiDAR map vast areas in hours, revealing structures invisible to the naked eye. In the Mediterranean, these tools recently uncovered a sprawling Roman city near Naples, its streets and villas perfectly preserved under layers of volcanic ash and sand. But the real game changer, artificial intelligence. By feeding sonar data into machine learning algorithms, researchers can now distinguish man-made patterns from natural formations with uncanny accuracy. It's how they identified what might be Atlantis, not the fabled island, but a series of concentric rings off Spain's coast, matching Plato's descriptions eerily well. Yet for every answer, the ocean offers a dozen new questions. How did these structures sink? Were they swallowed by rising seas or shattered by cataclysms like the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, a theory that a comet strike 12,000 years ago triggered massive flooding? And most tantalizing of all, if these ruins are evidence of pre-Ice Age civilizations, what else might lie beneath the waves? The deeper we look, the clearer it becomes that history isn't a straight line, it's a mosaic with half the pieces still missing. And those pieces might not be buried in deserts or jungles, but waiting in the silent dark, where the water remembers what the land has forgotten. Perhaps that's why these underwater ruins captivate us so deeply. They're not just archaeological sites, they're time capsules from epochs we can barely imagine, proof that humanity's story is far older and far more complex than any textbook dared to suggest. And with every dive, every scan, we're not just exploring the ocean, we're rediscovering ourselves. Imagine holding a piece of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon in your hands, not a chipped relic behind museum glass, but a perfect replica, its vibrant glazed tiles and intricate irrigation channels recreated down to the millimeter. This isn't fantasy. Thanks to 3D printing, teams of archaeologists and engineers are doing exactly that, resurrecting fragments of vanished wonders with a precision that would have been unimaginable even 20 years ago. The process starts with painstaking research combining ancient texts, surviving artifacts, and digital scans of excavation sites to create virtual blueprints. Then, layer by layer, printers deposit materials ranging from sandstone-like composites to molten metals, building physical models that let us touch, test, and even walk through reconstructions of history's most legendary structures. One of the most ambitious projects underway is the digital resurrection of the Colossus of Rhodes. Though the original bronze giant toppled in an earthquake in 226 BCE, researchers have used descriptions from historians like Pliny and Strabo, along with scans of similar Hellenistic statues, to create a scale model of how it might have stood. The real breakthrough, printing it with a hollow internal structure, revealing how the ancient Greeks may have used crossbeams and counterweights to stabilize the towering figure. Meanwhile, in Iraq, teams are reconstructing sections of Babylon's Ishtar Gate by analyzing the chemical composition of its original glazed bricks, then printing replicas with pigments that match the cobalt blues and golds described in cuneiform records. But this isn't just about aesthetics. These reconstructions are revolutionizing our understanding of ancient engineering. When a team at the University of Oxford printed a segment of Rome's Aqua Traiana, they discovered hidden ridges inside the pipes that reduced mineral buildup, a sophisticated solution to a problem modern water systems still grapple with. Similarly, a printed scale model of the Parthenon's columns revealed subtle curvature that corrected optical illusions, making the structure appear perfectly straight to the human eye. Every print is a puzzle piece, testing long-held theories about how these marvels were built. Could the Egyptians have used internal ramps to construct the pyramids? A printed quarter-scale section, complete with hypothetical passageways, is helping engineers test the idea in real time. Beyond academia, this technology is democratizing history. Museums from Cairo to Chicago now offer 3D printed artifacts visitors can handle, a game changer for the visually impaired or young learners who absorb history through touch. Online platforms let anyone download and print their own miniature Taj Mahal or terracotta warrior, blurring the line between past and present. And in war-torn regions where extremist groups have deliberately destroyed heritage sites, 3D scans taken before the damage are being used to print replacements, ensuring that even if the originals are lost, their legacy isn't. Yet the most profound impact might be philosophical. Holding a printed fragment of the Lighthouse of Alexandria or walking through a life-size replica of Petra's treasury forces us to confront these wonders not as distant myths, but as products of human hands and minds not so different from our own. The same ingenuity that stacked Stonehenge's megaliths or carved Borobudur's reliefs now fuels the printers rebuilding them, a loop of creativity spanning millennia. And with each successful print, we're reminded the past isn't fixed. It's a conversation, and 3D printing is giving us new ways to listen and to speak back. Picture strapping on a headset and suddenly standing in the shadow of Angkor Wat's towering spires, surrounded by the murmur of chanting monks and the scent of incense swirling through the humid air. This isn't a dream. It's the cutting edge of virtual reality, where sacred spaces once reserved for pilgrims willing to trek across continents are now just a click away. From the Oracle of Delphi's smoke-filled chamber to the echoing halls of Luxor Temple at dusk, VR isn't just recreating these sites, it's breathing life into them, letting us witness rituals and ceremonies as they might have unfolded centuries ago. And the implications are profound. For the first time in history, spiritual experiences tied to specific places aren't bound by geography or physical limitations. Take the Eleusinian Mysteries, ancient Greece's most secretive initiation rites, where participants swore never to reveal what transpired in the torchlit telesterion. Historians have pieced together fragments from clandestine accounts, but VR changes the game. By overlaying archaeological data with descriptions from recovered texts, developers have reconstructed the sanctuary's lay out down to the acoustics, how whispers would have echoed off the stone walls, how flickering torchlight might have danced across frescoes depicting Persephone's descent into the underworld. Donning a headset now lets you stand among initiates, not just as an observer, but as someone who feels the weight of the ritual's secrecy, the palpable tension in the air before the final revelation. It's a far cry from reading about it in a textbook, but this technology isn't just about observation, it's about participation. At Kyoto's Kiyomizu Dera, users can virtually join the nightly water drawing ceremony, holding a digital ladle beneath the moonlit Ottawa Falls, just as generations of monks have done. Motion sensors track their movements, ensuring the ritual's precision matters. Spill the water, and the experience resets, teaching the same focus ancient practitioners cultivated. Meanwhile, projects like VR Vesuvius immerse users in Pompeii's streets during the eruption, not as disaster tourists, but as participants in the desperate prayers offered at household shrines as ash rained down. These aren't games, they're emotional bridges to the past, designed to evoke the awe, fear, or devotion these spaces originally inspired. Critics argue that digital pilgrimages lack the physical trials, the blistered feet, the hunger, the exhaustion, that traditionally shaped spiritual journeys. Yet proponents counter that VR can deepen understanding in ways physical travel sometimes can't. Climbing the real Borobudur at dawn is transformative, but how many visitors grasp the mandala's intricate symbolism beneath their feet? A VR overlay can highlight each tier's cosmic significance, animating the path from earthly desire to enlightenment as the user ascends. Similarly, Mexico's Teotihuacan VR experience reveals hidden layers of the Pyramid of the Sun, peeling back centuries to show how its colors blazed under the sun before time faded them. The most revolutionary aspect, accessibility. For devotees who can't afford flights to Varanasi or Mecca, for wheelchair users facing inaccessible ruins, or for scholars studying sites now lost to war or erosion, VR offers something radical: inclusion. When the Vatican released a virtual tour of the Sistine Chapel's restoration, it didn't just preserve Michelangelo's brushstrokes, it democratized them. Now, a student in Mumbai can spend hours studying the Last Judgment from angles even physical visitors can't access, while a grandmother in Lima can walk the Camino de Santiago without leaving her living room. What's emerging isn't a replacement for physical pilgrimage, but a new dimension of it, one where technology doesn't diminish tradition, but expands its reach. As these digital recreations grow more sophisticated, they're prompting deeper questions. Can a VR ritual hold the same spiritual weight as its real-world counterpart? Does understanding the acoustics of Delphi's oracle chamber bring us closer to the divine, or merely the mechanics of how the Pythia's voice echoed? The answers may lie not in choosing between the ancient and the digital, but in recognizing how they intertwine. After all, every sacred site was once someone's innovation, a fusion of earthly materials and transcendent intent. Perhaps VR is simply the latest tool in humanity's eternal quest to touch the divine, no longer with stone and mortar, but with pixels and light. The Antikythera mechanism sits in a quiet museum case, its corroded bronze gears frozen in time, yet this unassuming artifact might be the most revolutionary piece of ancient technology ever discovered. When sponge divers first pulled it from a Roman shipwreck off Greece in 1901, they assumed it was just another statue. But decades later, X-ray imaging revealed the truth. A complex clockwork device with over 30 interlocking gears, capable of predicting lunar eclipses, tracking the 4-year Olympic cycle, and modeling the irregular motions of planets with staggering accuracy. This wasn't just a tool, it was a miniature cosmos in a box, centuries ahead of anything else from its era. What makes the mechanism truly astonishing isn't just its complexity, but the questions it forces us to confront. The gears mesh with mathematical ratios matching the Greeks' understanding of celestial cycles, proving they knew Earth's moon had an elliptical orbit long before Kepler formalized the idea. The device even accounted for the Saros cycle, an 18-year pattern of eclipses, using a pin and slot system that essentially functioned as the world's first known analog computer. But here's the puzzle. Nothing remotely this sophisticated appears again in the historical record for over 1,000 years. Did this technology vanish because it was too advanced for its time? Or was it part of a broader tradition of mechanical genius that simply didn't survive? Some researchers argue the mechanism had practical uses, helping sailors navigate by the stars or farmers plan harvests around celestial events. Others propose a more mystical purpose, pointing to inscriptions on its fragments referencing celestial omens. In ancient Greece, astronomy and astrology were inseparable. Knowing Venus' position wasn't just science, it was divination. Could this have been a priestly tool, allowing temple oracles to prove their connection to the gods by predicting eclipses or planetary alignments? The mechanism's back panel, reconstructed from scans, shows a spiral dial divided into 223 lunar months, the exact length of the Saros cycle. Imagine the impact when a priest turned a handle and announced, "The moon will darken in 14 days," and it happened exactly as foretold. Modern reconstructions have only deepened the mystery. When a team from University College London built a fully functional replica in 2021, they discovered the device could also calculate the timing of ancient athletic games, blending science and culture in ways we rarely associate with antiquity. Even more intriguing are the gaps in the surviving fragments, empty spaces where additional gears might have modeled Mercury and Venus orbits, suggesting the original was even more advanced. So was the Antikythera mechanism a triumph of engineering, a sacred oracle, or both? Perhaps the answer lies in how the ancient world saw no division between these roles. To them, the gears turning the heavens and the gears in this device weren't separate, they were mirrors of the same cosmic order. And every time we peer into its intricate workings, we're not just studying a machine. We're glimpsing a lost way of thinking, where the boundaries between calculation and wonder, between science and spirit, didn't exist at all. Buried beneath dense jungles and shifting deserts, the remnants of lost civilizations have waited for centuries, sometimes millennia, to be found. But now, artificial intelligence is changing the game, acting like a digital divining rod for hidden history. Picture an algorithm scanning thousands of satellite images, trained to spot subtle patterns in vegetation growth, soil discoloration, or even the way shadows fall across a landscape, clues invisible to the human eye that might reveal a buried wall, a sunken road, or the outline of a forgotten temple. In Belize, this exact method led researchers to uncover over 60,000 previously unknown Mayan structures, from modest homes to sprawling ceremonial complexes, all hidden under the rainforest canopy. These AI models don't just look, they learn. By feeding them data from known archaeological sites, scientists teach the algorithms to recognize the fingerprints of human activity. For example, certain plants thrive near limestone, a material many ancient cultures used for construction. Over time, these plants form telltale patterns in satellite imagery. In Cambodia, neural networks analyzing such patterns pinpointed the location of Mahendraparvata, a 9th century Khmer city swallowed by the jungle. Drones sent to investigate found temple foundations and an intricate grid of canals exactly where the AI predicted. But the real magic happens when these systems cross-reference multiple data streams. By combining satellite photos with geological surveys, climate records, and even ancient trade routes, AI can generate probability maps, heat maps of the past, highlighting where civilizations were most likely to flourish. In Turkey, a machine learning model factored in water sources, defensible terrain, and proximity to known Hittite sites to identify 5 high-probability locations for undiscovered settlements. 3 have already yielded ruins. Could this approach lead us to legendary sites like El Dorado or the Library of Alexandria? The challenge with myths is separating fact from embellishment, but AI is surprisingly good at it. Take the search for the lost city of Tenia in Greece. Historians knew it existed from ancient texts but debated its location. An AI trained on descriptions of the city's wealth, its position along trade routes, and pottery styles found in the region narrowed the search to a single valley. Excavations there uncovered coins inscribed Tenia, proof the algorithm had guided archaeologists to the right spot. Yet for all its power, AI isn't replacing archaeologists, it's arming them. These tools can't dig, can't interpret the cultural significance of an artifact, and can't feel the thrill of brushing dust from a millennia-old inscription. What they can do is shrink decades of fieldwork into targeted expeditions, letting humans focus on the stories behind the stones. And as these models grow more sophisticated, they're not just predicting where to dig, they're suggesting why civilizations rose and fell in those spots to begin with. The past isn't just hidden underground anymore. It's hidden in data, waiting for the right algorithm to bring it into the light. Stand inside the great ball court at Chichen Itza, clap your hands once, and listen as the sound ricochets off the limestone walls, transforming into a ghostly echo that mimics the cry of the sacred Quetzal bird. This isn't an accident, it's acoustic engineering so precise it feels like magic. Across the ancient world, from the whispering galleries of Mayan temples to the thunderous resonance of Malta's hypogeum, sound wasn't just an afterthought in architecture. It was the heartbeat of ritual, a force harnessed to bend perception and command awe. Take Delphi, where the Pythia delivered her cryptic prophecies from a chamber deep within the temple. Recent studies show the space was designed with a natural spring and fissures emitting ethylene gas, but also with walls angled to amplify her voice into an otherworldly reverberation. Pilgrims hearing her words through this acoustic filter wouldn't just listen, they'd feel the vibrations in their bones, convinced the gods themselves were speaking. Similarly, in Egypt's Karnak temple, certain corridors focus sound waves so intensely that a whisper at one end can be heard clearly 60 feet away, a trick that might have made priests seem omnipresent to worshippers. Modern audio software is now decoding these effects with startling clarity. By mapping the sonic properties of ancient structures using laser scans and impulse responses, the same tech used to design concert halls, researchers can simulate exactly how a chant would have soared through Göbekli Tepe's stone circles, or how a drumbeat echoed in Newgrange's passage tomb. The results reveal patterns. Many sacred sites boost frequencies between 95 and 120 Hz, a range known to induce trance states in the human brain. Was this deliberate? The builders left no manuals, but the evidence is written in stone. Perhaps the most haunting example lies in Peru's Chavin de Huanta. Its labyrinthine tunnels contain ducts that channel wind into a roaring, animal-like growl, while conch shell trumpets found on site, when blown inside the chambers, produce tones that interact with the architecture to create dissonant harmonics. To a visitor 2,000 years ago, it would have felt like the walls themselves were alive. What emerges from these discoveries is a radical idea that ancient cultures didn't just build for the eye, but for the ear. Sound was their invisible tool, shaping experiences from the divine to the political. When Roman senators spoke in the Curia Julia, the room's acoustics ensured even soft-spoken words reached every corner, a design that literally amplified democracy. And in Greece's Epidaurus Theatre, where a coin dropped on stage can be heard in the back row, the precision suggests an understanding of wave interference centuries before the math existed to explain it. The deeper we listen, the clearer it becomes. These weren't happy accidents. They were technologies subtle, sophisticated, and waiting for us to tune in. The silent lips of mummies have begun to speak, not in whispers but in torrents of data. In a dimly lit lab in Cairo, a team of scientists huddles around a screen as a CT scan slices through the wrappings of a 3,000-year-old pharaoh, revealing not just bones, but the remnants of his last meal, the scar tissue from old wounds, even the plaque in his arteries. Meanwhile, in the Andes, geneticists extract DNA from the frozen hair of an Inca child, sacrificed 5 centuries ago, tracing her ancestry across mountain ranges and generations. These aren't morbid curiosities, they're time capsules, and the tools we're using to open them are rewriting history one body at a time. Consider the surprise when DNA analysis of King Tutankhamun's family shattered long-held myths. For decades, historians speculated about the boy king's frail health and early death. But genetic testing revealed a far more dramatic story. His parents were siblings, a common practice among Egyptian royalty that left him with a club foot, a cleft palate, and malaria, a combination that likely contributed to his demise at just 19. Even more astonishing, his lineage showed ties not just to Egypt, but to the broader Mediterranean world, suggesting dynastic connections lost to the historical record. Suddenly, the golden mask in the Cairo Museum wasn't just an artifact, it was a chapter in a global family saga. The revelations don't stop at royalty. In Peru, isotopic analysis of mummies' teeth measuring trace elements absorbed from food and water has mapped ancient trade routes with startling precision. One teenage girl found high in the Andes had consumed maize grown hundreds of miles away, proving these sacrificed children weren't local offerings, but likely gifts from distant communities, chosen to symbolically unite regions through shared ritual. Similarly, CT scans of European bog bodies have detected traces of hallucinogenic plants in their stomachs, hinting at ceremonial meals before their deaths. These aren't just medical reports, they're menus from farewell feasts, recipes for the afterlife. Perhaps the most poignant discoveries come from the diseases preserved in these remains. Scans of Egyptian mummies show atherosclerosis hardened arteries was as common then as it is today, upending assumptions about ancient diets. In the deserts of Chile, mummified skin still bears the lesions of a deadly parasitic infection called leishmaniasis, carried by sandflies. By sequencing its ancient DNA, researchers traced the pathogen's migration alongside human travelers, revealing how trade and conquest spread illness millennia before globalization. Even the humble dental plaque of a medieval nun, analyzed for bacterial DNA, has rewritten the timeline of when humans first began consuming dairy, based on the presence of milk digesting enzymes. But the true power of this technology lies in its ability to restore identity to the anonymous. Take the Two Brothers of Manchester Museum. Two Egyptian mummies is long believed to be siblings based on their matching sarcophagi. When DNA proved they weren't related at all, researchers dug deeper, discovering one had Near Eastern ancestry while the other's roots lay in North Africa. Their shared tomb wasn't a family plot, but a testament to some forgotten bond, perhaps as comrades or friends. Similarly, facial reconstructions based on skull scans are putting flesh back on bones, turning skeletal remains into recognizable faces. The egg-TV'd girl, a Bronze Age teenager buried in Denmark, now gazes at us through reconstructed eyes, her oak coffin grave revealing she'd traveled extensively before her death at 16, a globetrotter from an era we assumed was static. What emerges from these silent witnesses isn't just a collection of facts, but a radical empathy. The arthritis in a scribe's fingers, the healed fracture in a warrior's skull, the pollen grains clinging to a child's shroud. Each detail collapses time, reminding us that these weren't specimens but people. And as technology peels back the layers, we're left with a humbling truth. The past isn't a foreign country. It's a mirror reflecting the same joys, sorrows, and struggles that define our lives today. The dead, it seems, have much to teach the living if we know how to listen. The legend of the crystal skulls begins in the shadowy back rooms of 19th century antiquities dealers, where these eerie, translucent artifacts first surfaced, each one carved with impossible precision from a single block of quartz or amethyst. Claimed to be relics of Aztec or Maya origin, they became instant sensations, fueling speculation about lost civilizations and esoteric knowledge. But here's the twist: modern science has turned this mystery inside out. Advanced spectroscopy and microscopic analysis reveal tool marks consistent with 19th century lapidary wheels, grooves, and patterns that couldn't have been made with pre-Columbian technology. So were these skulls elaborate hoaxes, or is there more to the story? Take the famous Mitchell Hedges skull, discovered in the 1920s by adventurer Frederick Mitchell Hedges' daughter during an expedition to Belize. Its jawbone moves independently, and under certain lighting, the quartz seems to glow from within. For decades, believers pointed to its flawless symmetry as proof of ancient artisanship, until scans showed minuscule striations from high-speed rotary tools, a dead giveaway of modern fabrication. Yet, even as the evidence mounts, lingering questions remain. Why would forgers go to such lengths to create objects with no known cultural precedent? No ancient Mesoamerican texts or artworks depict crystal skulls, and none have ever been found in verified archaeological digs. Some researchers propose an alternative theory, that these artifacts weren't meant to deceive but to inspire. The 19th century was obsessed with the mysterious East and lost civilizations, spurred by discoveries like Egypt's Rosetta Stone and Stevens and Cather Wood's illustrations of Maya ruins. In this climate, skilled artisans might have crafted the skulls as curiosities, objects to stir imaginations, not rewrite history. Others suggest a darker motive, tying them to the era's booming market in fake antiquities, where wealthy collectors paid fortunes for ancient relics of dubious origin. But the plot thickens when we examine the skull's material. Quartz of this purity is incredibly rare in nature, and carving it without fracturing requires expertise even modern jewelers struggle to master. A few specimens, like the Smithsonian skull, show traces of carborundum, an abrasive invented in 1893, clear proof of modern origin. Yet others, like the Paris skull, exhibit weathering patterns that suggest centuries of burial. Could some be genuine artifacts later, enhanced by dealers to increase their value? The most tantalizing possibility lies in the skull's alleged effects. Visitors to museums housing them report strange phenomena, sudden temperature drops, visions, even claims of healing. While skeptics dismiss this as suggestibility, materials scientists note that quartz is piezoelectric, meaning it generates electricity under pressure. In theory, certain carvings could focus these energies in ways we don't fully understand. Might the skull's creators, ancient or modern, have known something about crystal resonance that science is only now rediscovering? What began as a debate about authenticity has become a mirror for our own fascination with the unexplained. The crystal skulls challenge us to ask, does an object's power come from its origins or from the stories we attach to it? Science may have unmasked their makers, but their allure, like the ghostly glow of quartz in candlelight, endures. Ancient Sanskrit texts describe Vimana's gleaming aerial chariots that soared between celestial cities, powered by mysterious energy sources called Mercury vortex engines. Half a world away, Leonardo da Vinci's 15th century notebooks contain intricate sketches of helical screws and ornithopters, machines that uncannily resemble modern helicopters and gliders. These aren't isolated fantasies. From the Greek myth of Icarus to Chinese legends of wooden flying automatons, cultures worldwide dreamed of conquering the skies millennia before the Wright brothers left the ground. But what if these stories weren't just myths? Aerospace engineers and historians are now reconstructing these designs, probing whether humanity's first flights might have happened far earlier than we think. Take the Vimana descriptions in the Mahabharata, which detail aircraft with domed canopies, exhaust vents, and propulsion systems capable of vertical takeoff, features startlingly similar to modern VTOL jets. While mainstream scholars dismiss these as poetic allegories, a team at India's Institute of Science has built scale models based on the texts, testing whether mercury-based thrusters could theoretically create lift. Their experiments show that heated mercury in spinning copper chambers generates powerful vortices, producing enough force to lift small objects. It's not anti-gravity, but it suggests ancient observers might have witnessed advanced and now forgotten propulsion methods. Similarly, Da Vinci's aerial screw, long considered an impractical dream, was proven viable in 2019 when engineers constructed a 25-pound prototype using period-accurate materials. It actually flew. The real mystery lies in the gaps between these accounts. Why do cultures with no known contact describe flying machines with overlapping features? The Babylonian Etana myth speaks of a winged throne ascending to heaven, while pre-Columbian gold artifacts from Colombia depict delta-winged aircraft with stabilizers. Some researchers argue these shared motifs point to a lost epoch of experimentation, where early civilizations stumbled upon aerodynamic principles later forgotten. Others propose a simpler explanation, that human imagination naturally gravitates towards certain shapes when envisioning flight. Modern testing blurs the line between myth and possibility. When engineers at the University of Maryland recreated the ancient Chinese wooden bird described in 3rd century texts, a bamboo and silk glider, they achieved stable flight for over 300 feet. In Egypt, aerodynamic analysis of the Saqqara bird, a 2,000-year-old wooden artifact, revealed its wings have an airfoil cross-section nearly identical to modern planes. Coincidence, perhaps, but when you add these findings to discoveries like the 2,000-year-old Baghdad Battery or the precision-cut stones of Puma Punku, a pattern emerges, flashes of technical brilliance scattered across antiquity like breadcrumbs. The most compelling evidence might come from the sky itself. Nazca's desert glyphs, those massive geoglyphs only visible from altitude, have long fueled speculation about ancient aerial observation. How could artists without flight verify their designs? A radical theory suggests they used hot air balloons, supported by ceramic pots found nearby that bear soot marks consistent with sustained burning. In 2019, researchers proved it wasn't fantasy by building a balloon using only materials available to the Nazca people. It flew. So were Vimana's and Da Vinci's sketches merely dreams or distorted memories of real achievements? The answer may lie somewhere in between. Human ingenuity isn't linear. It surges and recedes, leaving fragments that later generations dismiss as myth until technology catches up to recognize them as science. Every reconstruction that takes flight chips away at the assumption that our ancestors were merely fantasizing. Maybe they were documenting, and maybe, just maybe, the sky wasn't as empty in the ancient world as we've been taught to believe. Held up to the light, the Lycurgus cup glows an eerie red, but tilted slightly, and the glass shifts to a cool, translucent green. This 4th century Roman masterpiece isn't just beautiful, it's a scientific enigma. Modern analysis reveals its secret: tiny flecks of gold and silver, ground so finely they measure just 50 nanometers across. That's smaller than a wavelength of light. At this scale, metals interact with light in bizarre ways, scattering certain colors while letting others pass through. The result: a material that changes hue like a mood ring, a phenomenon called dichroism. Here's the catch: manipulating matter at the nanoscale requires precision we only achieved with electron microscopes in the 1980s. So how did Roman artisans, working over 1,600 years ago, crack the code? The answer might lie in their workshops. Historians suspect the cup's creators stumbled upon nanotechnology through trial and error, blending crushed gemstones with molten glass to create dazzling effects. But accidents alone can't explain the consistency of these nanoparticles across surviving pieces. Some researchers argue the Romans had a rudimentary grasp of colloidal chemistry, the science of suspended particles using plant extracts or fermentation byproducts to stabilize the metal flecks. Recipes might have been guarded trade secrets, passed down through guilds until the fall of the empire scattered the knowledge. Then there's Damascus steel, the legendary blade material that could slice through lesser swords without dulling. Under electron microscopes, samples reveal carbon nanotubes, cylindrical structures 1,000 times thinner than a human hair woven into the metal's matrix. These microscopic reinforcements gave the steel its legendary flexibility and edge retention. But here's the twist: the original forging techniques vanished by the 18th century. Recent experiments suggest the secret lay in the raw materials. Indian wood steel, the precursor to Damascus blades, contained trace vanadium and other rare earths that may have catalyzed nanotube formation during smelting. When ore deposits with these impurities ran dry, the recipe became impossible to replicate. What unites these artifacts is their defiance of linear progress. We assume technology marches forward, but the Lycurgus cup and Damascus steel suggest peaks of knowledge can rise and fall like forgotten civilizations. Perhaps ancient artisans didn't understand the physics behind their creations, but their empirical mastery was so refined it bordered on alchemy. Or maybe, just maybe, fragments of deeper understanding survived from even older cultures, embedded in craft traditions until war, famine, or time erased them. The implications ripple outward. If nanotechnology existed in antiquity, what else might have been possible? Could the vivid blues of Maya murals, resistant to centuries of jungle humidity, owe their longevity to nanoscale mineral structures? Might the unbreakable glass said to grace Emperor Tiberius's palace have been tempered with microscopic reinforcements? Every discovery chips away at the assumption that our ancestors worked blindly. Instead, we're left with a humbling thought. The line between ancient art and advanced science might be far thinner than we ever imagined. The ruins of Tikal rise like broken teeth from the Guatemalan jungle, its temples silent witnesses to a catastrophe we're only now beginning to understand. For centuries, the collapse of Maya civilization was blamed on war or overpopulation until scientists drilled into nearby lake beds and found something startling. Layers of sediment told a story of relentless drought, decades without rain, recorded in the very mud beneath their cities. Satellite imagery now confirms it. The Maya heartland was once crisscrossed with canals and reservoirs, an elaborate hydraulic empire that thrived for 600 years. Then, around 900 CE, the rain stopped, crops withered, reservoirs dried to cracked earth. Within generations, cities that had housed tens of thousands stood empty. This wasn't an isolated tragedy. From the sun-baked ruins of Akkad in Mesopotamia to the abandoned pueblos of the American Southwest, climate change has been the silent architect of collapse long before the term entered our modern vocabulary. Take the Akkadian Empire, history's first superpower. 4,300 years ago, it ruled from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean until suddenly it didn't. Clay tablets from the city of Tel Leilan describe a disaster beyond comprehension. For the first time since cities were built, the great fields produced no grain, the rivers carried no fish. Ice cores from Greenland fill in the blanks. A volcanic eruption likely triggered a global cooling event, shifting monsoon patterns away from Mesopotamia for 300 years. The Akkadians weren't just fighting hunger, they were battling a climate regime their entire society was unprepared for. Sound familiar? What makes these ancient collapses so chilling are the eerie parallels to our own moment. Like the Maya, we've built civilizations in climate sweet spots, coastal cities, breadbasket regions, that are now becoming vulnerability zones. Like the Akkadians, we're seeing once predictable weather patterns unravel, with wildfires, floods, and droughts intensifying in ways that strain even modern infrastructure. But here's the crucial difference. We can read the warning signs they couldn't. Pollen samples from Maya reservoirs show they kept planting the same water-intensive crops even as droughts worsened, a lesson in the dangers of inflexibility. Meanwhile, studies of the ancestral pueblones reveal how some communities adapted by diversifying food sources and migrating seasonally, strategies that bought them extra centuries in the Southwest's arid landscape. Modern technology lets us see these patterns with terrifying clarity. LiDAR scans of Angkor Wat show how the Khmer Empire's vast network of canals and reservoirs, once a marvel of engineering, became its Achilles heel when monsoon patterns shifted. The very systems designed to control water became conduits for devastating floods during extreme rains, then bone-dry traps in prolonged droughts. Today's satellite data paints a similar picture for regions from the Sahel to Central Asia. where ancient irrigation networks now risk becoming climate liabilities rather than assets. Yet history offers glimmers of hope too. In the Indus Valley, archaeologists have uncovered cities like Mohenjo-Daro with sophisticated drainage systems and grain stores designed for climate variability. Their decline, when it came, appears more gradual than catastrophic, a lesson in resilience through planning. Similarly, the ancient Egyptians' reliance on Nile floods was a gamble, but their bureaucracy kept meticulous records of flood levels, adjusting tax burdens and grain allocations accordingly. These weren't just administrative details, they were early climate adaptation policies. The question isn't whether climate change can topple societies. We know it can. The question is whether we'll heed the whispers from the past in time. When researchers analyzed 2,000 years of European history, they found a startling pattern. Periods of climate stability bred cultural flourishing, while shifts triggered unrest, migration, and collapse. Today, as our own climate stability unravels, we're holding something no ancient civilization had: a global network of data, a deep understanding of Earth systems, and crucially, the chance to choose differently. The ruins of Tikal and Tel Leilan aren't just relics. They're mirrors reflecting back the consequences of ignoring the delicate balance between civilization and climate. The difference this time, we can still rewrite the ending. Buried beneath the dusty hills of southeastern Turkey, Göbekli Tepe shatters everything we thought we knew about the dawn of civilization. This sprawling complex of stone circles carved with snarling foxes, coiled snakes, and towering birds of prey isn't just old, it's inconceivably ancient. Built around 9,600 BC, it predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years, the Pyramids by 7,000. But here's what stuns archaeologists: this wasn't the work of farmers or potters. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were hunter-gatherers, living in a world where wheat hadn't yet been domesticated, where clay hadn't yet been fired. So why would nomadic tribes, people we've always assumed were focused solely on survival, invest generations hauling 20-ton limestone pillars, carving them with artistic precision, and arranging them into precise geometric patterns? The answer might rewrite history's biggest assumption, that agriculture came first, enabling complex societies. Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite. Its pillars, some standing 16 feet tall, form circles with diameters matching later sacred sites like Stonehenge, proof of advanced astronomy or geometry millennia before we thought such knowledge existed. The carvings aren't random. They're a menagerie of predators and prey, perhaps a spiritual map of the natural world these people depended on. Even more staggering, ground-penetrating radar has revealed at least 20 more circles still buried, hinting at a ritual landscape as vast as it is mysterious. What were these spaces for? One theory points to the bones. Excavations uncovered thousands of gazelle and auroch remains, suggesting mass feasts. But there's no evidence of permanent dwellings, just the temple. This wasn't a town, it was a destination, a place where scattered bands converged for ceremonies that bound them together. The effort required quarrying stones miles away, carving them with flint tools, feeding hundreds or thousands of participants implies a social hierarchy, a division of labor, maybe even taxation. All without farms, without cities, without what we've always considered the prerequisites for civilization. The implications ripple outward. If hunter-gatherers could organize on this scale, what else might they have achieved? Some researchers speculate Göbekli Tepe wasn't alone, that other mega sites await discovery, hidden beneath the Anatolian plains. Others wonder if climate played a role. Around the time Göbekli Tepe was abandoned, 11,500 years ago, Earth plunged into a mini ice age called the Younger Dryas. Did collapsing ecosystems force these people to invent farming, turning wild grasses into wheat to survive? If so, Göbekli Tepe might not just predate civilization, it might have triggered it. Every layer unearthed here deepens the mystery. The oldest circles were deliberately buried around 8000 BC, filled with rubble as if sealed for eternity. Why was it ritual, or were they hiding knowledge from some forgotten catastrophe? Modern tools are piecing together clues. Residue analysis reveals beer was brewed here millennia before evidence of bread. Not for sustenance but for ceremony, the stones themselves whisper secrets, carvings of headless men, of vultures hovering over decapitated bodies, hinting at beliefs far darker than we imagined. Göbekli Tepe forces us to ask, what if civilization didn't evolve in a straight line from simple to complex? What if there were flashes of brilliance, of communal effort, that rose and fell long before we started recording history? As the radar maps more hidden chambers, as each excavation season peels back another layer, one thing becomes clear: the story of human progress isn't just incomplete, it might be upside down. And the truth, buried for 12,000 years, is only just beginning to surface. Imagine feeding every myth ever recorded into a machine: the thunderous epics of Greece, the shape-shifting tales of the Navajo, the dreamtime stories of Australia, and asking it to compose something new. That's exactly what researchers at the Mythopoeic AI project are doing, training neural networks on thousands of folktales to generate myths that feel like they've been whispered around campfires for centuries. The results are uncanny: stories of moon goddesses who weave time from spider silk, or trickster crows who steal the sound of laughter, narratives so rich in archetype and symbolism they could pass for rediscovered legends. But here's the twist: these tales were born not from human imagination, but from algorithms detecting hidden patterns in our collective storytelling DNA. What makes these AI-generated myths so unsettlingly familiar? Linguists point to the machine's ability to mimic the grammar of myth, the recurring motifs like forbidden thresholds, trials by ordeal, or animals as messengers between worlds. When an AI produces a story about a hero descending into an underworld to bargain with a shadowy ferryman, it's not copying the Odyssey or the Epic of Gilgamesh verbatim. Instead, it's identified a narrative template so deeply embedded in human culture that even when the details are original, the bones feel ancient. One generated tale from the project, about a mountain that breathes once every 1,000 years and demands riddles from travelers, mirrors Inuit legends and Slavic folklore so closely that ethnographers initially suspected plagiarism, until they realized no exact precedent existed. Yet this experiment raises profound questions about the nature of creativity itself. If an AI can produce myths indistinguishable from human-made ones, does that mean our greatest stories are just elaborate permutations of a finite set of patterns? Cognitive scientists argue that human myth-making has always been combinatorial. We rearrange familiar elements like cosmic floods or dying and rising gods into new configurations. The AI simply exposes this machinery, revealing how culture operates at scale. But some anthropologists push back, noting that the most enduring myths arise from lived experience: the terror of thunderstorms, the ache of famine, something no algorithm can truly fathom. The project's most controversial output came when researchers fed the AI fragmented descriptions of archaeological sites like Göbekli Tepe or the Nazca Lines, asking it to generate lost myths that might explain them. The result was a haunting narrative about star worshippers who built stone circles as echo traps to capture celestial voices, a story that, while fictional, resonated so strongly with indigenous oral traditions that some communities requested copies for their own archives. This blurring of lines between synthetic and sacred has sparked ethical debates. Is it respectful to let machines riff on cultural heritage, or does it risk diluting traditions kept alive through generations of careful stewardship? Perhaps the most tantalizing possibility lies in the opposite direction, using AI not to create new myths but to reconstruct lost ones. By analyzing linguistic shifts and symbol frequencies across time, algorithms are helping historians piece together fragmentary tales, like predicting how a half-eroded Mesopotamian tablet's missing stanzas might have described Ishtar's descent into the underworld. In one case, an AI trained on Celtic knotwork motifs and Ogham inscriptions generated a previously unknown seasonal cycle myth that later matched a newly discovered manuscript fragment in Wales. It's as if the machine is acting as a cultural pendulum, swinging between what we've preserved and what we've forgotten. As these experiments continue, they challenge us to rethink the boundary between computation and intuition. When an AI spins a yarn about a river that flows backward to correct past mistakes, or a mirror that reflects ancestors instead of faces, it's not just assembling data, it's echoing the human mind's oldest impulse. To explain the inexplicable, to find meaning in chaos, and maybe, just maybe, to remind us that myths were never just stories. They're the code our species uses to transmit what matters most across the abyss of time, whether the voice telling them is human or something new. Deep beneath the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, the Pythia, the oracle of ancient Greece, would perch on a tripod above a crack in the earth, inhaling strange vapors before delivering prophecies that shaped empires. For centuries, historians dismissed these accounts as mere legend, until geologists discovered something extraordinary. Two intersecting fault lines directly beneath the temple, their friction releasing a mix of gases, including ethylene. This sweet-smelling compound, now used in modern anesthesia, induces a trance-like state at low doses: euphoria, blurred vision, and the sensation of floating outside one's body. Suddenly, the Pythia's frenzied utterances and the temple's strict ritual timing prophecies were only given on certain days make chilling sense. The priests weren't just staging theater, they were curating a chemical experience, fine-tuning exposure to harness the gas's effects without poisoning their seer. What's fascinating isn't just the science behind the oracle, but how it reframes ancient spirituality. The priests of Delphi didn't view this as manipulation. To them, the gases were the breath of Gaia herself, the Earth's divine voice channeled through geology. Modern experiments with ethylene confirm its psychoactive properties mirror descriptions of the Pythia's state. Disorientation followed by bursts of lucidity, exactly when seekers needed clarity most. Even the temple's architecture played a role. Recent acoustic studies show the chamber amplified the Pythia's voice into an eerie reverberation, while a natural spring beneath the floor added humidity, enhancing the gas's potency. This wasn't haphazard mysticism, it was a precision-engineered interface between the human and the divine, yet the real revelation lies in the prophecies themselves. When the Athenian general Themistocles consulted the oracle before the Persian invasion, he was told to trust wooden walls. Interpreting this as a call to build a navy, Athens triumphed at Salamis. Was this strategic genius or ethylene-induced inspiration? The answer might be both. Neurochemical studies suggest low-dose ethylene can heighten pattern recognition, the kind of lateral thinking that turns metaphors into battle plans. The Pythia's cryptic verses weren't just riddles, they were cognitive nudges shaped by a gas that blurred the line between revelation and reason. The legacy of Delphi challenges our assumptions about ancient wisdom. We often separate rational history from supernatural myth, but here, geology, chemistry, and spirituality intertwine seamlessly. The same fault lines that made Delphi a sacred site also made it scientifically potent. Modern tools haven't demystified the oracle, they've revealed how deeply the ancients understood their world's hidden forces. The Pythia didn't need to know the molecular structure of ethylene to harness its power, just as we don't need to comprehend quantum physics to use a smartphone. Both are examples of humans wielding phenomena they don't fully understand to transform their reality. Perhaps that's the oracle's final lesson. The past wasn't less sophisticated because it lacked our vocabulary. It simply spoke in a different language, one where gas seeping from rocks wasn't chemistry but divinity. And in that space between the measurable and the mystical, the Pythia's voice still echoes, reminding us that awe and analysis aren't opposites. They're two sides of the same coin, forged in the fault lines of human curiosity. Water dripped steadily from the bronze spout of an Egyptian clepsydra, each drop marking another fraction of an hour with surprising consistency. These water clocks, used as early as 1500 BCE, weren't crude approximations, they were precision instruments, calibrated to account for seasonal changes in water pressure by adjusting the size of their outflow holes. Archaeologists testing replicas found some could measure time to within 15 minutes over 12 hours, rivaling the accuracy of medieval tower clocks. Meanwhile, in China's Forbidden City, massive water-driven clockworks powered intricate astronomical displays, their gears synchronized to the motions of celestial bodies with eerie precision. But water wasn't the only medium ancient cultures mastered. The sundials of ancient Greece, often dismissed as simple noon markers, reveal astonishing sophistication when studied closely. The Tower of the Winds in Athens, built in the 1st century BC, featured 8 sundials aligned to different cardinal directions, compensating for seasonal solar angles. Modern recreations show these could track time to within 10-minute intervals comparable to early pocket watches. Even more impressively, Roman portable sundials included adjustable latitude plates, allowing travelers to recalibrate them across the empire's vast expanse. Perhaps the most striking examples come from the celestial calendars of Mesoamerica. The Maya didn't just track days, they calculated Venus' 584-day cycle to within 2 hours over 5 centuries, and their long count calendar could pinpoint dates across millennia without error. Researchers studying Dresden Codex eclipse tables found they predicted lunar events with 98% accuracy, achieved through generations of naked eye observations recorded in complex numerical systems. These weren't just timekeeping tools, they were mathematical masterpieces, encoding cosmic rhythms in stone and bark paper. What unites these devices is their creators' deep understanding of natural cycles. The Antikythera mechanism's gear ratios mirror the Saros eclipse cycle, while Egyptian water clocks included special scales for the unequal temporal hours used before standardized timekeeping. This wasn't guesswork, it was the product of meticulous observation where priests doubled as astronomers and engineers functioned as horologists. Modern experiments reveal even simple candle clocks, marked at intervals, could reliably measure nocturnal hours within a margin medieval monks would have envied. The implications ripple outward. If ancient societies could track time this precisely, how did it shape their worldview? The Mayas' obsession with cyclical time influenced everything from crop cycles to warfare, while Babylonian astronomers used their star charts to predict celestial omens for kings. In Rome, the public sundial near the Forum wasn't just utilitarian. It symbolized the state's control over civic life, its shadow dictating when courts convened and markets closed. Timekeeping wasn't neutral. It was power, ritual, and cosmology fused into gears, water flows, and stone alignments. Today's horologists are uncovering even deeper layers. Laser scans of medieval monastic clocks show they incorporated technology inherited from Islamic water clocks, which themselves borrowed from Persian and Indian designs. This wasn't a linear progression from primitive to advanced, it was a global dialogue where knowledge ebbed and flowed across continents. When researchers reconstructed Su Song's 11th century astronomical clock tower using his original schematics, they found its escapement mechanism, a critical component for regulating time, anticipated later European designs by centuries. The next time you check your phone for the hour, consider this. The quest to measure time didn't begin with pendulums or quartz crystals. It began with water swirling down a drain, with shadows creeping across stone, with scribes recording the heavens' motions on clay tablets. Our ancestors didn't just invent clocks, they invented the very idea of time as something measurable, divisible, and precious. And in doing so, they laid the foundation for every tick and tock that followed. Ancient Hindu scriptures speak of countless universes, each floating like bubbles in an endless ocean, appearing and dissolving over cosmic cycles lasting trillions of years. The Rigveda's Nasadiya Sukta ponders the origins of existence with questions that mirror modern cosmology. Who really knows? Whence was it produced? The gods came afterwards. Meanwhile, on clay tablets from Babylon, astronomers tracked Venus's movements with such precision that their data still matches NASA calculations today. These aren't isolated examples. From Mayan codices predicting solar eclipses to Aboriginal songlines mapping the Milky Way's dark constellations, ancient cultures encoded celestial knowledge that often aligns uncannily with modern astrophysics. The question isn't just how they achieved this, but why their insights feel both profoundly intuitive and startlingly ahead of their time. Consider the Hindu concept of Kalpa's cycles of creation and destruction spanning 4.32 billion years, eerily close to Earth's current age. Or the Bhagavata Purana's description of infinitesimal, spinning paramanas that comprise all matter, resembling atomic theory centuries before Democritus. Skeptics dismiss these as lucky guesses, but the consistency across texts suggests deeper observation. The Mahabharata describes a weapon so devastating it makes hair fall out and nails crumble, details that parallel radiation sickness. Could these be fragmented memories of lost technologies, or simply poetic metaphors? The line blurs when you examine artifacts like the Delhi Iron Pillar, rust-resistant for 16 centuries due to an unknown phosphorus-rich coating, or the Vedas' mentions of Vimanas flying at speeds that calculate to modern jet velocities. Babylonian astronomy offers even more tangible evidence. Their Venus tablet, dating to 1600 BCE, records the planet's 8-year cycle within minutes of modern measurements. They didn't just track movements, they predicted them using complex arithmetic progressions, a method later rediscovered by medieval Islamic scholars. Their zodiac, divided into 12 constellations matching the sun's annual path, wasn't arbitrary. It reflected precise celestial mechanics. Even their myth of Tiamat, a primordial dragon whose body forms the heavens, finds eerie resonance in modern theories of planetary formation from cosmic collisions. What's most striking is how these cultures, separated by continents and millennia, converged on similar insights. The Dogon people of Mali knew Sirius had an invisible companion star millennia before telescopes confirmed Sirius B. Norse myths described Yggdrasil, a world tree whose branches hold 9 realms, a structure not unlike our solar system with its planets. The Hopi spoke of cyclical worlds destroyed by fire and flood, echoing scientific evidence of asteroid impacts and ice ages. These parallels could stem from shared human cognition or something more provocative, that ancient observers, untethered from modern light pollution and armed with generational patience, detected patterns we're only now rediscovering with satellites and spectrographs. The real mystery lies in the transmission. How did the Maya calculate a solar year to within 17 seconds without telescopes? Why do Hindu texts describe multiverses in terms resembling string theories, brain cosmology? One compelling theory suggests these weren't divine revelations, but the culmination of painstaking oral traditions, centuries of sky watchers noting subtle shifts, refining models through trial and error. The Maya's Dresden Codex, for instance, corrects earlier eclipse tables, showing a scientific method in action. Alternatively, some propose these cultures tapped into intuitive understandings of nature's rhythms, their myths serving as mnemonics for complex phenomena. Modern astrophysics is now testing these ancient claims. Researchers studying Vedic descriptions of nakshatras, lunar mansions, find they correlate with specific star clusters used for navigation. Simulations of Hindu cosmic cycles reveal they approximate the universe's expansion and contraction in certain quantum gravity models. Even the Bible's description of the firmament as a hammered-out dome aligns with recent hypotheses about the early universe's plasma-filled shell. Whether by accident or insight, these ancient models challenge our assumptions about primitive science. They remind us that curiosity about the cosmos isn't new. It's as old as humanity itself, written in starlight and stone. Imagine hearing a language last spoken when Rome was just a village, not as dry academic text, but as living sound. That's the promise of artificial intelligence now breathing life into extinct tongues like Etruscan, a civilization that once rivaled ancient Greece but left behind only cryptic inscriptions on tombs and pottery. For centuries, linguists struggled to decipher these fragments, relying on guesswork and scarce bilingual texts. But today, neural networks trained on thousands of known languages are detecting hidden patterns in word order, verb conjugations, and phonetic shifts, reconstructing grammar rules lost for millennia. When researchers at the University of Bologna fed an AI every surviving Etruscan inscription, about 13,000 words total, the system proposed probable pronunciations for words like zilath, meaning ruler, and even suggested how poetic meter might have worked in their lost literature. The real breakthrough lies in how these models handle gaps. Take Sumerian, the world's first written language, which vanished 4,000 years ago. Traditional methods relied on Akkadian translations, but AI can extrapolate from cuneiform's visual patterns alone. By analyzing how wedge-shaped strokes cluster across tablets, algorithms have identified previously overlooked grammatical particles, tiny but crucial words like and, or, but that reveal how speakers connected thoughts. One project at the University of Chicago reconstructed Sumerian nursery rhymes by comparing them to children's texts from later Mesopotamian cultures, then used vocal tract modeling to approximate how a young scribe might have sounded reciting them. The result, a sing-song cadence that feels startlingly human, not robotic. But this isn't just about nostalgia. Reviving dead languages cracks open cultural vaults. When an AI translated previously opaque Etruscan legal texts, it revealed a society where women could own property and testify in court, radical for 6th century BC Europe. Similarly, newly deciphered Minoan trade records from Crete show sophisticated loan systems with interest rates, suggesting Bronze Age merchants operated with financial tools we assumed were much younger. Even mundane clay tablets become revelatory. One reconstructed Akkadian recipe for beer bread led archaeologists to brew an intoxicating loaf that matched residue found in temple vessels. The ethical dilemmas are as complex as the algorithms. Some indigenous communities protest the digital resurrection of languages like Taino, erased by colonialism, arguing that AI lacks the cultural context to wield words tied to sacred traditions. Others see opportunity. The Maori in New Zealand are collaborating with linguists to train AI on wax cylinder recordings of elders, preserving nuances like throaty K sounds that early ethnographers missed. Perhaps the most poignant application comes from Holocaust studies, where Yiddish dialects once spoken in vanished shtetls are being pieced together from diaries and song lyrics, giving voice to lives cut short. What emerges is a paradox. These tools are most powerful when guided by human intuition. An AI might deduce that Etruscan's word for sun shares roots with Latin sol, but only a historian would recognize how that linguistic thread weaves through Mediterranean sun cults. The real magic happens in the interplay when machine learning suggests a possible verb ending and a philologist spots its resemblance to a ritual chant fragment. Together, they're not just rebuilding vocabulary lists, they're reconstructing worldviews. Soon, museums won't just display Rosetta Stones, they'll let you hear them. Experimental apps already overlay augmented reality on cuneiform tablets, animating the symbols while a synthesized voice reads shopping lists or love poems aloud in Babylonian. It's a reminder that these weren't dead languages to their speakers, but the lively medium of gossip, jokes, and lullabies. Every translation is a bridge across time, and with each AI-assisted leap, we're not just recovering words, we're reclaiming the hum of ancient streets, the whispers of scribes, the very cadence of forgotten lives. Beneath the dry earth of Zion, an army of clay stands frozen in time, not as the muted terracotta figures we see today, but as a riot of color. When archaeologists first brushed the dirt from these warriors, traces of vibrant pigments clung to their surfaces, deep purples from crushed malachite, fiery reds from cinnabar, even rare shades of synthetic Han blue, created through a complex chemical process lost for centuries. These weren't just soldiers, they were a kaleidoscopic guard, their lacquered armor gleaming in hues meant to mimic the real imperial troops they accompanied into the afterlife. But the paint tells a deeper story. Analysis reveals some pigments contained binding agents derived from animal glue, a technique previously thought impossible in 3rd century BC China. Even more astonishing, certain colors appear only on high-ranking officers, suggesting a chromatic code of honor woven into the ranks of this silent legion. Then there's the mystery of their weapons. Buried spears, swords, and crossbow triggers emerged from the pits still sharp enough to draw blood after 2 millennia. Metallurgists expected rust instead. They found chromium, not the haphazard plating we associate with modern chrome bumpers, but an ultra-thin, molecularly bonded layer protecting the bronze beneath. How recent experiments suggest Qin dynasty artisans may have soaked blades in a chromium-rich salt derived from local mineral springs, then heated them to create an oxide barrier. This wasn't just anti-corrosion technology, it was electrochemistry centuries before the periodic table. The implications rewrite history. If the Qin could mass-produce weapons this advanced, their metallurgical knowledge surpassed Rome's at its height. But perhaps the most haunting discovery lies in the faces. Using 3D facial recognition software originally developed for criminal profiling, researchers mapped over 8,000 warriors and found no duplicates. Each nose ridge, brow line, and lip curve is distinct. Some bear features common among China's ethnic minorities today. Others show traits from as far as Central Asia, hinting at the empire's vast diversity. Were these portraits of real soldiers? Forensic reconstruction suggests yes. When artists recreated flesh and blood versions based on the statue's proportions, the results weren't generic templates but individuals with asymmetrical smiles, old scars, even signs of congenital conditions. This wasn't an assembly line, it was a memorial in clay, preserving the faces of an army down to the last man. yet the greatest secret might still be underground. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed anomalies beneath the excavated pit's chambers with mercury levels so high they mirror ancient descriptions of Qin Shi Huang's tomb as a map of China with rivers flowing in quicksilver. Nearby, thermal scans show hollow spaces suggesting an unopened armory or perhaps the emperor's legendary automata, mechanical birds and bronze musicians said to play eternal concerts. As technology peels back layer after layer, one truth becomes clear: the terracotta army wasn't built to be seen. It was meant to remain hidden, guarding mysteries we've only begun to uncover. And with each revelation, these silent sentinels whisper a question: how much of history's genius have we underestimated? From AI-decoded scripts to VR-resurrected cities, technology isn't just uncovering the past, it's reanimating it. Think about the last time you stood before a crumbling ruin, struggling to picture its former glory. Now imagine slipping on a headset and watching those same stones reassemble themselves, their colors blazing anew, the air humming with the voices of those who walked there centuries ago. This isn't science fiction. It's happening right now in labs and archaeological sites worldwide, where cutting-edge tools are stitching together fragments of history into living, breathing experiences. Take the library of Ashurbanipal, for instance. 25,000 clay tablets from ancient Nineveh, many broken into pieces no bigger than a coin. For over a century, scholars painstakingly reassembled them by hand, a process slower than the Assyrian scribes who first pressed cuneiform into wet clay. Then came AI. Machine learning algorithms now scan thousands of fragments, matching edges and text patterns in seconds, work that once took decades. Already, they've reunited tablets describing celestial omens, royal decrees, even what might be the world's oldest customer complaint, a merchant named Nanny griping about subpar copper deliveries. These aren't just translations, they're conversations across millennia, suddenly audible after centuries of silence. Yet the most profound shifts are happening beyond academia. Virtual reality now lets anyone wander through Angkor Wat at its zenith, dodging elephants in the marketplace or kneeling in a torchlit shrine as monks chant. Augmented reality apps overlay reconstructed frescoes onto Pompeii's bare walls, their pigments so vivid you'd swear the ash just fell yesterday. Even video games, once dismissed as frivolous, are becoming historical tools. The creators of Assassin's Creed Odyssey worked with archaeologists to rebuild Athens down to the graffiti on its walls, offering players a chance to explore an ancient city more accurately than any textbook could convey. But here's what's truly revolutionary. These technologies aren't just showing us the past, they're helping us question it. When digital scans revealed hidden chambers in the Great Pyramid, they didn't just add rooms to a blueprint, they forced us to reconsider why such spaces existed at all. When spectral imaging exposed erased texts beneath medieval manuscripts, we didn't just gain new words, we uncovered entire schools of thought scrubbed from history by time or tyranny. Every algorithm, every scan, every reconstruction chips away at the notion that history is fixed. Instead, it's fluid, layered, and far stranger than we ever imagined. So what's next? The frontiers keep expanding. Neural networks are learning to predict where undiscovered tombs might lie by analyzing satellite data and soil patterns. Quantum computing could one day crack scripts we've deemed undecipherable, like the Indus Valley symbols or Rongo Rongo of Easter Island. And as haptic technology advances, we might not just see ancient artifacts, we'll feel them. The weight of a Roman gladius, the texture of Maya jade, the heft of an Egyptian scribe's brush. This isn't about replacing historians with machines. It's about giving them and all of us new ways to listen. The past has always been speaking, whether through the alignment of stones, the pigments on pottery, or the wear patterns on a temple's steps. We're only now developing the tools to hear it clearly, and with each breakthrough we're reminded the ancients weren't primitive, they were pioneers grappling with the same fundamental questions that drive us today, just with different tools. So the next time you hear a myth about a golden city or a lost technology, don't dismiss it as fantasy. Ask instead, what truth might be hiding in that story, waiting for the right technology to reveal it? Because the line between legend and history has never been thinner, and the next great discovery might be lurking in plain sight, disguised as a tale we've been telling all along. The past isn't finished with us yet, and who knows, the mystery we explore next could be the one you help solve.